fearless focus, elite problem-solving skills under extreme pressure. Okay, let's just dive right into this explainer. We're going to explore the absolutely fascinating psychology that keeps world-class circus performers safe, hyper-focused, and performing at their absolute peak. Because look, when you're suspended high above an arena, you literally cannot afford to be paralyzed by stress. Today, we're unpacking a brilliant clinical study that reveals exactly how these elite artists build a bulletproof mindset, and more importantly, how we can steal their exact strategies for ourselves.
I mean, just imagine it for a second. You're dangling 40 feet in the air, there's no net below you, the music is blaring, the spotlight is completely blinding, and thousands of eyes are tracking your every micro movement. What is actually going through your mind? When we watch the incredible performers of Cirque du Soleil, we're usually totally captivated by their physical abilities, right? We see the impossible shapes, the endless spinning, the flawless juggling, but behind the glitter and the theatrical makeup is an absolute psychological pressure cooker. And while the physical stakes of a circus are obviously extreme, the psychological danger of stress they face, well, it's actually something we all deal with every single day.
What's really interesting here is that researchers found different artists face incredibly unique stressors. It proves that high stakes take many forms. It isn't just one blanket type of anxiety. Take aerialists, for example. They're battling a constant looming fear of severe physical injury. Clowns, on the other hand, face immense immediate social pressure because they have to engage and win over a massive audience in real time. Contortionists have to master this extreme mind-bending pain control, while jugglers are constantly dealing with the persistent fear of failure, that dread of dropping a prop in front of thousands of people. So the stakes are wildly different, but the intensity of the pressure is universally high across the board.
And here's the harsh reality we all just have to accept. Obstacles are inevitable. In any high-stakes environment, whether you're performing under the big top, competing on a field, or just standing up to present in a corporate boardroom, you're going to face roadblocks. Stress and negative circumstances are completely unavoidable. But, and this is crucial, the real danger isn't the obstacle itself. It's the fact that stress actively triggers dysfunctional thoughts. And those dysfunctional thoughts are what can instantly ruin your performance, no matter how physically prepared you are.
Let's slow down for a second and look at what actually happens when things go wrong. When you hit a roadblock or make a mistake, what does your brain naturally want to do? It ruminates. If you don't have elite cognitive skills in place, you fall right into what we call the rumination trap. You get completely bogged down in the problem. You start overanalyzing your past failures, picking apart exactly why you messed up, and before you know it, you're spiraling down into a pit of negative self-talk. It's a completely natural human default, sure, but it is a highly destructive one. In a high-stakes performance, this kind of cognitive freeze is totally disastrous. It leads directly to anxiety, depression, and significant executive dysfunction, which basically means you literally lose your ability to make clear, immediate decisions. Think about it. When your mind is stuck looking backwards at the mistake you just made 10 seconds ago, you're no longer present in the current moment. And if you aren't present, you're virtually guaranteed to make another mistake right now. You're no longer performing, you're really just surviving.
Let me ask you something. Have you ever made a tiny, almost unnoticeable mistake early on in a presentation, a meeting, or maybe a game, and then spent the entire rest of the event silently beating yourself up? Instead of focusing on what you needed to do next, you were just trapped in your own head, playing that tiny error on a continuous loop. We've all been there, right? But it's the exact opposite of elite performance.
But there is a solution. To figure out exactly how the best in the world eliminate these dysfunctional thoughts and perform flawlessly under immense pressure, researchers conducted a pretty fascinating clinical study. They compared 109 elite, seasoned circus artists from 7 different Cirque du Soleil shows against talented but less experienced students from the prestigious National Circus school in Montreal. Basically, they wanted to know what actually separates the world-class pros from the up-and-coming students when the heat is really on.
So the crucial point here is that the best in the world don't just grit their teeth and endure stress better than the rest of us. They actively rely on elite problem-solving skills. The study's results were incredibly revealing. The seasoned Cirque du Soleil artists demonstrated significantly higher problem-solving abilities than the students, and directly as a result of that, they experienced far fewer dysfunctional thoughts and much lower levels of stress. They essentially built themselves a mental shield.
And honestly, here is the craziest part of the data. The researchers found that utilizing just 2 specific mental problem-solving strategies accounted for up to 30% of the variance in reducing dysfunctional thoughts during training. Let that sink in. A 30% variance from just 2 mental shifts. That is a massive, game-changing advantage for achieving true cognitive mastery.
So let's look at what those are. 2 massive cognitive shifts, how to steal the elite acrobat mindset for your own performance.
The first massive shift is problem disengagement. This is defined as the ability to actively dissociate from the problem itself and immediately shift your focus onto the preferred solution. Seasoned artists do not spend precious time analyzing their problems when they're right in the middle of a performance. They detach entirely from the error and they look strictly forward. In fact, the researchers found that this specific skill was the absolute strongest predictor of reducing stress in both training and live shows. Drop the mistake, detach, and pivot immediately to the fix.
The second shift is goal orientation. This involves the ability to focus exclusively on the optimal outcome you want to achieve rather than ruminating on past events or past failures. What's really fascinating here is that the researchers found goal orientation to be particularly critical during live shows. When the pressure of the audience is breathing down your neck, that pressure demands an absolute hyper-focus on the final successful outcome. You can't think about the drop. You can only think about the catch.
Now, I know what you're probably thinking. You might not be juggling flaming torches on a unicycle anytime soon, and you probably aren't hanging by your ankles from a trapeze. So how do you actually take this clinical data and train your brain to solve problems like an elite acrobat in your everyday life? How do we translate this from the big top straight into the office?
Well, to do this, you can use a proven 4-step cognitive behavioral framework. Step 1. Define the problem clearly and objectively. Just remove the emotion entirely. Step 2. Brainstorm solutions without critique. This is absolutely vital. You have to let your creativity flow without judging the ideas yet, which perfectly mirrors an artist's unjudged creative flow. Step 3. Evaluate the pros and cons of the alternatives you just generated. And finally, Step 4. Implement the best available option immediately. By practicing this specific loop, you train your brain to stop wallowing, which, again, is problem disengagement, and start moving aggressively toward what you actually want, which is goal orientation.
To wrap this all up, just remember this core takeaway. Stop letting inevitable obstacles ruin your mindset. Adopt the psychology of an elite circus artist. When you stumble, consciously detach from your mistakes, step completely out of that rumination trap, and focus entirely on your solutions. You are training yourself to perform, not just survive.
I want to leave you with a final thought to reflect on today. Which of those 4 problem-solving steps do you actually struggle with the most? Is it defining the problem without emotion? Or maybe it's brainstorming without being overly critical of yourself? Let me know in the comments below and start practicing that specific step today. Thanks so much for joining me for this explainer, and keep moving forward.